Okay, so now this video is going to encompass a section on working at the Government Publishing Office and also later working at USDA. I worked at USDA twice, but this one is the encompasses last year and this year, my time over there. So after I got pushed out, after I got assaulted actually over at Smithsonian, I was out of work for 2.5 months and had to borrow money from my family. And they were just beyond words angry at me about that, which anyway. So I got called in by a company. It started off with a company out of Houston called AM Agency, and some Russian lady down there just doing who knows what. So she's a feeder for the larger contractor called Anadarko. Now, Anadarko is an American Indian tribe company, and I believe, and I may be wrong, but I believe that they got the USDA contract overall because American Indians, for what I've been told, have a no-bid status, which puts them above white companies, above women companies, black companies, and then they sit at the top. They don't have to put in a bid. They just say, hey, we'd like to have the job. And as long as some other criteria meet, I think that they are given the job. If that's the case, that wouldn't surprise me because USDA has turned over hands at least 3 times that I know of. One time was with a company out of St. Louis, a Chameleon. One of the angriest people I ever worked with was Turner. For some reason his first name eludes me. But now, so what happened? Well, in March of last year, which would be 2014, I was contacted to come down to USDA and meet with Raphael Samuels. And he was upstairs in that 5th floor IT section that has about 40 people altogether working in there. And what they did was they did an interagency contract with the Government Publishing Office, where we're by Union Station. So the GPO is over there, and they're whistling Dixie, going along saying, well, we want to migrate and get to Office 365 in the cloud, get everything over. And then, more or less, and I'm summarizing, paraphrasing a little bit here, a little bit of liberty, they say, oh my lands, all of our machines are in XP. We got to get these things over to Windows 7, at the bare minimum Windows 7 32-bit. And so we'll do an in-place imaging and put the data back. Well, most organizations, most people, generally I find, particularly larger organizations, don't know much about migrations and upgrading computers because you don't do it that often. It's a special case project kind of a thing. By the time I had gotten over there, I'd had experience in 10 different migrations, so I pretty much knew the gist of how to run them, what to do, because especially after having run the Smithsonian migration, and for that matter, junior project on the IMF one, but the Smithsonian one across 3 states, 37 spreadsheets open at one time. I knew what to do. So Samuels told me to come over, and I was told in an email to meet him. I go down there, somebody comes to the door to meet me, and I go to a room, and he doesn't come. So I talked with some people. I met somebody I had met years ago in the previous USDA contract. He was now a federal worker. We talked to each other. Oh yeah, I know you. Yeah, everything's all good. And so I leave, and I'm starting to walk back to L'Enfant from Independence now. That is 2.5 blocks. So it's about a quarter mile. I'm walking up towards the Energy Building. I'm almost past it. I'm getting ready to cross over and then just going around the corner and go get on the subway and come home. And Raphael Samuels calls me up and says he wants to talk to me. I was like, I had just spent 45 minutes and now he suddenly wants to talk to me. Can I come back? I come back and I have to sit and wait for him yet again another 10 minutes in that little lobby space down around Wing 4. Finally he gets there, and so we have a talk, and I explain to him that I have experience in migration, and he says, well, I want you to write down your understanding of migrations and put football game or NFL or something in the heading of the mail. I don't know what that was, some title, and then send it to me before midnight tonight. Explain to me what you know. So then I went back to the station, go all the way back home, and I got home about 5, 6 o'clock, and in 2 hours I wrote out 5 pages of explanation, and I formatted it with proper, table of contents and everything like that. and send it over. So the job was for me to be a migration person. They needed 10 people. They were starting April 1st, roughly that day, the beginning of April, I should say. But so next thing you know, I get a contact back and they said they want me to be lead on it. It's like, okay, I'll be lead, fine. A little extra pay, 10 people. And so they call me in and say at the end of latter part of March, and I go over to the GPO, we start work on site. And so Erica Wade was hired to be the project manager, and Victoria Edgington was the program manager coming out of Houston. So we all go in and we sit down and they hand me a statement of work. And so all the brass is sitting there from the GPO, all the big guys. And we talk for a little while, and then those two slip out. So that was the beginning of the setup, right there on the spot. And immediately, I've got eyes on, right in my face, so what do we do? What are you going to do here? And I was like, what am I going to do? I looked through the statement of work. The statement of work says that they will provide the instructions, and they will provide the methods, and they will provide the checklist, and they will provide the lists of which customers go first in the order of migration. And we will do roughly, I think it was supposed to be, if it was starting in April properly, it would have been 20 per day. They don't have anything ready. They don't know what they're doing. They're totally clueless. And so that started several days of heavy negotiation back and forth, to the point where one guy who wanted to be pushy said, well, you're going to be responsible for any data loss. And I said, oh, no, I am not. No, I am not responsible for anybody's data loss on this job right here. This is you all's thing, and you call me in and then you don't have things ready? No, no, no. So then I asserted authority on the statement of work. I said, it's, in actuality, you all are supposed to work out your own instructions right here, because you can't decide if you want to offload the data from customer's thing to a thumb drive or hard drive, or if you want to upload it on the network and you don't have anything ready. So they didn't have their stuff ready, but Anadarko didn't either. They had 6 people, including myself, maybe 7 in that case, or 6. But anyway, on site. We were supposed to have 10 altogether. Day 1, that would be the first week of April. So we have a little bit of trickling in March, you know, and then we start into first week of April, and things still not ready yet. So about the end of right in the middle of the second week, 2 GPO armed police come from downstairs, upstairs, and they said, we want to see so-and-so, we want to see so-and-so. One of the guys who was doing a George Costanza, like at the Yankee Stadium episode on Seinfeld, you remember, when he was sleeping under the desk? He crawls out from underneath the desk, had the newspaper one day when I walked past him. He was very technically astute. They escorted him off site because he had weed conviction, felony. Then they call another guy, I don't know what his name is, Ahmed or something, but it was something like that. And they said that he had 12 felony indictments against him, and one of them was to blow up a federal building. So when we get over here with the GPO guys, they're angry at me. And that's, what are you angry at me? I don't have a thing to do with hiring or anything, this other stuff going on here. So the GPO got so angry, they said, you're not doing any more on-site interviews. You can do them off-site. We'll do the background checks, and when if they clear, then they come in, we'll give them a badge. And not before. Fair enough. So now, we got to do interviews. And Erica Wade, and I've heard this from several people, and from her, that she was hired to be a project manager for the U.S. Post Office. And then something didn't go right, so she was delivering the mail before she came to this job. So she doesn't have a PMP, she doesn't have a technical background, and most likely has never run a migration or even done one, period. But somehow she's above me to be project manager. Topping that off, she took leave from the post office but didn't quit. And this is a 2-month job, because what the job entailed was 800 machines to be migrated from the beginning of April to the end of May. No ifs, ands, or buts. Somewhere, I think the project was 200,000, but I don't know. And that's it. And so here she is. And we're beginning to do a little bit of test runs over here. I've wrote out a whole bunch of documentation for these guys and gave them checklists and things, and then they finalized how they liked it on the latter part when I made that assertion about the statement of work. It's your job to do this here. So they were getting the procedures in place, and we're doing a few test runs and things like that. It was starting to go well. But they didn't have the list in place. It's like, well, who do you want to go first? Well, come on. We got to get going here. We're slipping behind a little bit. Now, on the point of doing interviews, so he said, okay, we're going off site. And I said, all right, I'm taking over this right here. And he said, well, we could do the same thing as did USDA. We do the questionnaire. No, we're not doing questionnaires. This is a simple migration. Here's essentially the emerging instructions. Follow these to a T, and everything will be fine. It's idiots' work. It's 2 months worth of idiots' work. Anybody who's done a little computer work could do it by simply following the script and literally checking off the boxes for every single customer. Just follow the script. Nothing to it. And that's what we were working towards, dummy-proof, so we could get the thing done, because we have, I mean, there's no room for error to lose data, because it's in-place migration. Once you re-image the machine, all that data's gone. So then I start doing the interviews, and I said to the people, here it is. It's going to be this. I see your credentials. I see you got high clearances or some other kind of experience. I'm sorry. It's a dummy job. Here's the rate. Here's the job. You go home, you forget about whatever you did that day. It's no stress. You just do what I tell you to do. And you work 8 hours. You want it or not. And I want to make sure you have a good background check. So I did the interviews, and we brought on people, and we finally got fully staffed the 4th week of April. So we had a meeting one day, and the CIO director over there was obviously not amused, a little concerned about how this whole thing's going. And after the daily meeting, I called him in the hall and I said, I want to tell you something. I don't see any reason why this is not going to work. I've been in these things before, and we can still make it. And I give you my word. If I thought we couldn't make it and this project is a total loss, I'd let you know. But we can do more than the original idea. Your numbers were too low the first time. Your estimates were too low. We can do more than that. Now, going back to the original thing, I asked Raphael Samuels later on, who wrote the statement of work? Why was nothing in place? Well, you know, it was a good estimate. No. It was totally off to be put in this kind of pinch where I have to take over the project as the project manager. Erica didn't. We had daily meetings, and I sat in front of the brass every single day and answered for the entire project. And when the project was going, I made the assignments, I made the schedule, and then I said, this is my BlackBerry phone that these guys have given me, and so if you need me, you call me. So I was on the floor all day, and when people came late to work, I started the migration without them. And when they came in, I said, here, finish this one and then get these other ones done. So I did the migration, I did the work, I did the management, I did everything. And I answered to the brass every single day. And so instead of doing 20 units, we had one point a high of 29 units in one day. And we finished the project 2 days early. And I said I wanted to be compensated for that. And they made the usual threats. Anadarko and AM Agency just thumbed their nose at me. So they still owe me money for that. But the real clincher was when they took 2 of my subordinates over to the USDA and they gave them jobs but didn't give me one. So I sat, I'm the manager, and I was out of work for a solid month. It's just unbelievable. They wanted to put me in the basement where there's sewage gas. By the way, EPA, you need to get down to the USDA into that basement where they manage the laptops and things in that little place. It's been that way for at least 7 years. There is sewage gas coming out of that basement down there, and it is a total health risk for anybody who works down there. You have to be crazy to work in that place. That's what I told them. I said, I'm not working in here. Because when I went at the tail end of that project, I went back over to USDA and they said they're doing interviews, and Raphael Samuels comes in, and yet again, I said I need to catch a HOV ride back to home from the Pentagon, and so I need to interview at 4 o'clock. Raphael Samuels showed up. It was a 1-hour interview. He showed up for my interview at 4:53. And then he had the audacity to say, how you doing today? He said, I'm not doing well at all. You're late. I was just livid with that. So, that project ended and paid me for what I did. No bonus, no nothing. Stood me down for a month, so I lost a month of wages on that. Then they brought me over to USDA and said that they had a job over in the GIPSA section. So we go in there and we sit down, and there's an Indian guy, Abhay Singh. So it was obvious in the meeting that the two sides were jerking each other. This side wanted a Tier 3 person, but they didn't want to pay the Tier 3 rate. They wanted to pay a Tier 2 rate. And this side was saying, we're not going to let you run around with this whole thing, but we still want to kind of get a contract going here so we can make money. Because the billing was going to be very high. And once again, AM agency is nowhere to be found, but they're the ones who were paying my check. Not Anadarko, but Anadarko's doing the negotiation. So if you want to talk about rent-seeking free riders in this country, look at the temp agencies. You'll see some amazing things. How many mouths did I feed at that place? Anyway, so I was brought on, and one of the first days I was in there, we were starting to take care of surplus inventory, and they had an intern from University of Delaware, engineering student, I think it was third year, comes in dressed like Jack Nicklaus every day. Wouldn't wear jeans to work or anything like that. And we had eventually hundreds of pieces of equipment, servers, switches, computers, you name it, down the basement. They had to be tagged in surplus, sent out to Beltsville. Well, the problem with that is USDA building is a filth box. I mean, it's just a stunner. It's a 100-year-old building, I guess. It's just ridiculous. It really is just dirty. And somebody urinated in the storage room down on 6th floor basement. It's just inexcusable work conditions in that place. Really just terrible. So he had already been there for a while because he's a summer intern. He didn't want to do any work. So it got to the point, we went down there together one day, and we worked from, or pedaled around, I guess would be a better way to put it, from about 9 till noon. And then after noon, he takes his lunch and then he didn't show up. He didn't come back. And for the next several weeks, upstairs on 2nd floor, 4th wing, he just sat there. Or maybe it's 3rd wing. Anyway, he just sat at his desk. And he didn't do a stitch of work and was getting paid by some organization in D.C. And I found, went to the people, when he left, I said, do not bring him back again. This is ridiculous. You're sitting here like this. But nobody cares, you know. I can do all the work because I'm the only white guy in the room right there. You've got him, you got a black guy, you got a Latino, you got a black woman, and then up the hallway you've got Asian guy. And people talk about diversity. That's a load of crap. Diversity is a means to abuse white people these days. I mean, it's just all this stuff. I hate the white guy. I don't want to hear all that. I didn't do anything to anybody. I don't know you people who are angry all the time about whatever went on. I don't know what your deal is. I didn't do anything to you. But the retaliation, it's quite stupendous. So anyway, it got to the point where I started doing tickets and remedy a little bit, and I was on the phone with a user one day outside the area, and Tanika Harris, Sanchez, and maybe somebody else, they're all standing around talking. And they're intentionally doing this right near my desk. I'm on the phone, I can't even hear what the customer's saying. I said, do you all mind moving along somewhere else? And Ed Chi came over to my desk and started to put his finger on my phone to put my phone on hold. Who comes along and puts their finger on somebody else's phone at their own desk with the audacity? But you see, this is there's a fence here. And so the federal workers can stand on this side of the fence and throw rocks of any sort to a contractor, and they think they're untouchable. And that's the perversion of the federal government. And in fact, that's a perversion of a lot of companies. I mean, that's what went on at Norfolk Southern. Oh, we can threaten you, we can fire you, you can't do anything because you're just a contractor, we can get rid of you. No, you can't. No, you can't. You can't work somebody to death, or you can't expect somebody to put up with work conditions and then just just let it slide, or use your phony ethics boards and stuff like that. No, you can't. And that's coming into fore here with USDA as well. So at the USDA, there's really no teaching or helping anything. I would come in the morning, the door would be locked because Tanika Harris would lock the door to keep people from coming into the help desk to get help. And she'd go back in the corner and be laughing, cackle laughing, and Ed Chi would come down and join in with her. Sometimes Sanchez would join. just people back in the corner talking, not doing any work whatsoever. It's just, and I know you're going to say typical federal worker. You have to experience it. You can't just stand off in a corner and say, I know how that works. You've got to see this stuff. It's just ridiculous to watch. So, the work really piled up while I was there. They saw that I wanted to make things go right, so they started piling stuff onto me. And of course, I didn't realize it was a setup because Sanchez was set up for Gil Sanchez was set up to go to do a what is it called? Not an internship, but a detail. And he was trying to get out of there to go work somewhere else. So he was really not participating. And the trouble, here's the thing. When you got a help desk, you got a basing sitting over here who was, if he had just not come in to work at all, if he had never been there, it would have been no difference. I would never use the word manager and his name in the same sentence. You just would not do that. So you had tier 3 people in there, and they're all GS-13s, they're all making over $100,000, and nothing's getting done really. I mean, the work gravitated onto my shoulders. It was just really, it was really something. The worst part, though, was working with Tanika Harris, because she would continually give me her assignments. Now, the other two pretty much left me alone. They really didn't give me much assignments, and I have to say, working with Morris, I can't really say I got any complaints. He did make an unbelievable comment, though, when the intern, who was a black guy, left. And I had said to him, you can't bring him back. He made a very strange statement to me. He said, it's really something in this country that a black man has to work twice as hard as a white man to prove his worth. And I was like, he didn't do any work at all. What are you talking about, man? So I didn't say anything, but I was really put off by that one. That was over the top. But otherwise, you know, Morris and I had a good relationship. He taught me a few things. He sat down one time, we were wiping out some switches to be D-band, and do a little command line stuff, and taught me a few things. So that was except for that comment, I can't really complain. Morris and I had we didn't work a lot together, but I think we had a good working relationship on that note there. But up in the head office, up underneath Dan Knight, who was running the OCIO over there, Dan Knight is just he's just a kind of a person who, I just use the word retaliation to describe him. It's what he does. Scowling all the time. He doesn't, I wouldn't use the word management in his, he doesn't hold anybody accountable for anything. If they're slacking off, he gives the minority races a free pass. If they're not doing anything, it doesn't matter. But if he sees somebody like me working, and this is the same thing that went on over there at the IMF. You have Alan Bernstein over there, who's a PM. All the other workers were black. They go in a room, and they're talking about how not to look at a woman's rear end when you're walking down the hallway. But yet, when Alan doesn't know where everybody went, and he's angry at me, I mean, he's angry, he wants to know where everybody is, Alan calls me, Alan Bernstein out of New York at the IMF job over there on the migration in that spring on 2013, he calls my phone and says, where the F are you? He doesn't call them. Yeah? Because the whites are afraid of doing anything to the minorities these days. All free passes. Work the taste out of them, say anything you want. Whitey can't do anything. Whitey has to take it, but over here, you let folks get a free pass and work individuals to death. It's ridiculous. So, anyway, the work just piled up and piled up over at that place, and eventually they started excluding me from regular meetings, withholding information, And Tanika would come down all the time and make assignments to me. This started all the way back early in the fall of, well, really at the beginning, in the summer of 2014, working over there. And to jump ahead just a little bit, eventually with her, I went to Anadarko, to Victoria. I went to Bay. I went to Dan, and I went to the administrator. I wrote them all emails and said, I don't work for Tanika today, tomorrow, any other day. I'm not going to keep putting up with this harassment. And she just keeps on. She'd come to my desk and she would make outrageous claims that such and such activity was my fault. Took no responsibility. Let the inventory get totally out of control as she did. Ask her a question, and she said, okay, ha ha ha, that's your one question for today. Did that at the beginning, did it right at the end. Just unbelievable. Followed me in the hallway, followed me to customers' desks. She's in there gossiping with customers while I'm doing the work. I recall one time there was a political appointee who was sitting up at the head office there. Well, she's not political appointee. She was somebody with the political appointees up in a high level. He'd given her a laptop, and she needed a network printer, and so Tanika went up there to install it, and then I see this person walking in the hallway later, and the lady says, my network printer's not working. And I said, well, that's strange. So I go in and I look at the settings. Tanika Harris, making over $100,000 a year and been there who knows how long, had set the IP address to be the default gateway. If you have done any kind of computer work in any kind of enterprise place where you have a network, you know full well that the default gateway is the router. You do not set printers, laptops, desktops, or anything else to a .1 address. Everybody knows this. This person's making over $100,000. This is your federal money being wasted because she didn't know what to do. I have a screenshot of this. So I go in there and set it up, and furthermore, when you set up a network printer, you do a test shot over to the printer to make sure it's printing properly, and then you say, your printer's ready. There you go, user. Didn't do that either. So that level of incompetence was just stunning. And the same thing happened again slightly before that in the spring of this year, where they have a town hall with a video conferencing system. And they use screens with the administrator coming in and brings in, and they just, any questions they want to ask him, they do this. So Bay assigned Tanika to do this, and I was kind of just following along to see how to do stuff with the VTCs and things like that, learn a little bit. And then Tanika, yet again, was trying to assign things to me. This was around February, and I think in the final production was in April. So she starts trying to assign me, so I went to a Bay and had a private meeting. I said, I'm telling you, I'm not working for her, and she's not assigning me this stuff, and I'm not doing this stuff. This is outside my statement of work. I'm not doing your VTCs and setting up this thing. You assign it to her, you make her do it. So that kind of got off my neck for that one project. So they go along for over a month and a half, and then they start getting close to the date. And then they start having problems, and they can't figure out how to get things working. I was like, Well, early in the game, I had told Bay, I said, they're going to screw this thing up because they're not paying attention. Morris had already held a little mini training conference a month before on how to do the VTCs in the broader sense. Brought all kinds of people in there and said, no, look, y'all got to do this stuff yourself. It's not that hard to push a few buttons and you teleconference to another site down in Kansas or somewhere else or Colorado or wherever. It's not that big of a deal. So Morris, I took notes, and then when it came to this particular one, he had talked about in a certain room they use a bridge function so that they can bring all the different VTCs all together at once. It's very special, and they have somebody who sits in the back and off-site who manages that. I heard Morris say that. So when this assignment to Tanika came up, I was like, I know exactly what's going to happen here. She's going to blow this out of the water and mess this up completely because she's so incompetent. And so I went to Morris. I said, Morris, who is that person that you referred to that knows about how to do this? And he said, it's a so-and-so. I'm leaving him out. He doesn't need to be in this video. And he's over in such and such place. You can just ping him on the mail. It's okay. So I pinged him and I said, I'd like to set up a dummy run if you don't mind. Well, I got so busy in the spring by doing everybody's work, because by this time Morris then was going out on his own detail. So now we got 2 GS13s, tier 3s, gone. Network guy, server guy, boom, gone. So now you got her, Tanika, not doing any work. So who's doing the work? There's your threesies right there. 3 people's work. On a tier, and I'm tier 2 contracting. I'm making way less, tens of thousands of dollars less than these guys. And now I'm doing their work. They knew what they were doing. It was a setup. It's just a setup. So anyway, they get closer and closer to the date. I got so busy I could not contact that guy and do a dry run. I just could not find a spare minute to get things done, because I was literally running in the hallways at the USDA with so much work. It was just a ticket flood. And they would come to my desk, and they would ask me, the USDA employees in at the GIPSA section of USDA would say, is anybody else working today? How many times did I hear that? How many times? I don't know. So anyway, they get right up against the day before, and Dan Knight and Ed Sheik come walking through, and they said, they asked me some questions, and I said something about, how's your video conference setup going? I knew what was going on because I heard them talking in the hallway. They were freaking out. Yeah, it's fine. I said, have you talked to so-and-so? Huh? I said, have you talked to so-and-so, that person? Why do I want to talk to him? Because he's the one who manages the bridge so that you can bring all those people together for the town hall, for the administrator of the GIPSA, for 600 people, man. So Dan and Ed Chi kind of look, and it just total thunderstruck. Well, that was right there the day before. And essentially, it was saved their bacon, because then they got it up and running. When they contacted Morris and said, we heard XYZ, and then they contact the guy off site and get it all set up. Then it worked. And it was a success. So there was an incident between February and April, whereby I kind of saw that things were going to happen. I'm a kind of a person, I try to anticipate needs, so I want to get facts brought together and have assets ready. So for example, when new laptops came in, they didn't order extra power bricks, they didn't order extra supplies, extra memory, they didn't order anything. So I ordered all of that stuff. And it was like an act of Congress. I mean, it was really unbelievable trying to get things ordered. They just said, well, no, we don't need it. You do need it, because they're going to come to me and they're going to ask for me this stuff. They had done it on all the old machines, and when I did the surplus, and I saved all the old power bricks. So I had a drawer full of them, and I would hand them out like candy. You wouldn't believe. I mean, you'd think those people taking them home and use them for, I don't know, slingshots or something. You know, David and Goliath or something, who knows. Anyway, but I was playing ahead like that. So when it came to, and that's part of the reason why I planned ahead with the town hall. I knew that thing was going to blow up. So one day, somewhere in March, I think it was, I went around the office on a Friday. Nobody was there, working the whole help desk by myself. And I was looking at all the jacks because of something Morris had taught me. So I was trying to get all the jack plates, and I was going to trace them back to the panels on the switches. So I would have all that information in a spreadsheet, and I know exactly when something goes wrong. I could just look it all up and pass it over to the network guys who had access to the actual switches remotely, and they could, log in as privileged executive or whatever, whichever level they need to get in the Cisco switch, CISA, and fix the VLAN or fix whatever's wrong. So, but you got to have that information, because if this particular user's got a problem, or if this office has a problem, which came up later, you need to have that information ready. So anyway, or if you have slowness, the network's slow. Who's having the problem? Well, you need the jack traces, you need the MAC addresses, all that stuff. And that's the kind of chart I was making. So I was going around and collecting all that information, and so I knew who was on site and who wasn't that day. So here comes Tanika Harris. Comes up and assigns me to do the phones. Phones were not in my statement of work, but it was an opportunity to learn, so I did a little bit of work. So with Morris gone and the phones having to be reprovisioned, they bought 150 phones on Windows 8, and that didn't work out with their mobile device manager. So then they had to get rid of 150 phones 3 months later, total loss, and buy another 150 phones and had to reprovision all of them. So I ended up writing the instructions on how to provision the phones end to end, from startup on provision on the provider, all the way down to making sure that the App Store worked and that they could see PDFs on the phone. 7 pages documentation. Nobody wrote this mess out. I did, because I got to be organized. And you know, because when you're being dumped with all the work, you have to step up your game and get yourself super organized, have everything at your fingertips ready to go. How do I do this? Because I forgot I hadn't done this in 6 months. Or where are these assets? Or where are these supplies? Where do I get this? How do I find this answer? This is how you got to do things in order to give top grade service. It's just the way it is. You know, so you got to be competent. You got to have some integrity and desire to do things right. It's no mystery of the universe, not splitting atoms over here. Anyway, so as I'm going around, I knew who was on site. I went in every single room, so I knew who was on site that day because I'm making my map and writing it down in pencil, and I was going to do the whole thing in a Visio diagram, and then I know where everything is. And people were getting ready to shift around, so I wanted to know when one person moves from one office, because they were consolidating offices, then I know this person's on this VLAN or is on this drop. And then if something's going wrong here, I know that I don't tag them in Active Directory or SCCM or something over here. They're right here, and I know. So I have control of my assets, control of my people. It's only 70 people. You know, it's not that big of a deal. Anyway, so then as I go around, and I had been tasked with doing some phones, so here comes Tanika. So actually Morris gave me some phones, but Tanika stuck her nose in it yet again. Morris was in charge of the phones, and like, you know, we had this understanding, so it's all good. You know, he taught me a few things and set it up this way and do this and all that. So I had 4 phones that could be provisioned. 4 people were ready, according to Morris. And because I'd gone around, one person was not around. One girl was not there. So we had 3 cases, and Dan said, get a phone, have to have a case. So we had 3 cases. So we have a black man, a Latino woman, and a white woman. Tanika comes around with the cases. She takes the white woman. I do the other 2. I get their phones set up. So then the person who got left out, well, she wasn't in the office that day. And so a few days later, you know, from that day, a few days later, I get a call from her boss. Well, her boss was a person I was already working with who had ZoomText issues, and she wanted some special equipment that was available through a Department of Defense program to be given to the USDA. So I set up for her 2 stations. And I set up so that she could pick up her laptop and set it on a station at home and set it on the one at work and have dual screens, and it was exactly mirrored. And I wrote out all the instructions for her on how to set it up. I explained everything. I trained her. I helped her order the things. I did everything front to back. That's why I was given an award, because she's the one that triggered the award from the administrator, and she's the one that was getting it done. She also invited me. She asked me, she said, I want to take you out to lunch over at the secretary's buffet across the street. Okay, sounds good. So, in fact, she called me up and said, hey, let's go over on such and such day. I said, fine, we'll go. Then, so that morning, on the morning we're going to go to have the buffet, I woke up at 2 a.m. and ate breakfast because I was so hungry. My appetite is all out of whack with the stress in that place. And so when I got to 6 a.m. to go to work, I wasn't hungry. 7 a.m., something around there, no, 6 a.m., 5 or 6 a.m. So I said, well, I'm going to have a buffet, maybe a buffet at 11. I'll just, you know, I don't need to bring my lunch, so I'm going over there. And it's all taken care of. I get to work, and she calls in sick. I had just spoken with her the day before. She calls in sick, so I don't have lunch, I don't have buffet, I don't have anything. Man, I was hot. So she calls back later another day and says, you know, you go to buffet. I said, no, just never mind, I'm not interested anymore, whatever. So then she starts on the award tangent from there and everything. Well, anyway, the point is that about this same time, she calls me on the phone and says, my subordinate didn't get their phone. And I said, she wasn't on site. So the phone has to be provisioned with the person there because they got to log in. You give them the phone. I'm not going to provision the phone while they're not there. I have to have the passwords because I got to set it up together. It's the way it gets done. You do these things personally. This is a known fact. You go down to Verizon or AT&T to get a phone. You're not saying, hey, give me a phone. You go down and get it done. You do it personally. You know, you get yourself a phone. So, or if you do it over the phone, if you call them up, you still are dealing with a what do you call it, a sales rep or something, and then they provision and they mail it out to you. But you still got to get the information. You got to do certain things. That's just the way it is. So she wasn't there, and so her boss tells me, "Well, you didn't give her a phone, and I think that's an EEO problem." Oh, Okay. So this year, in March, maybe April, you're accusing me of being a racist when somebody isn't at work because I didn't give them a phone that day? And she repeated it twice during the phone call. And then, at the end of the phone call, she said, I'm still trying to get you some sort of monetary award for the good work you did for me. You accuse me of racism and you're getting an award from the political appointee at the same time in the same conversation. Well, I tell you, folks, I don't know. That's one of the big ones I've ever seen. And it roils me to no end because I'm sick and tired of hearing the diversity crap. I am so sick and tired of that. And all this trash, everybody's a racist. I'm so sick and tired of it. I mean, I've been married to an Asian woman for over 20 years. She's brown. English is not her first language. So don't talk to me about, all of you idiots out there, don't talk to me about diversity. I don't want to hear it. We're all made in God's image, so just stop it. So I told my boss, I said, if that's the way you want to do it, you got a black man and you got a black woman who are tier 3, they can provide service for those two over there from now on. If that's the way it's going to be, you want to falsely accuse me and put my job in jeopardy because I'm a contractor. I know how you play. You think you got the upper hand, you can throw rocks at me? You're on your own. So they kept pressing me to do tickets, and I put the tickets over in Tanika's queue. I'm not touching these tickets. I told Abay, he agreed with me. I reported to Abay what was going on, and it was reported to Dan. They took no action. Of course, they're all federal workers. Oh, we're not going to do anything. You're just a contractor. And Dan told me that later. So then, a ticket came up because the ZoomText software was using too much memory and it only had 4 gigs of memory on the laptop. I was like, yeah, okay. So more memory was ordered, and I put the ticket over, and by this time I'm managing the queue, which I'm not supposed to be doing, but I'm managing the ticket queue for the entire GIPSA section across the country. And I'm giving people tickets. If something was for Dallas or for Texas, it goes there. If it was for Kansas, it goes there. If it was for Louisiana, it goes there. You know, it's a direct on-site thing. Let them handle it. They even hired a guy who couldn't do any tickets. They hired another contractor in Kansas. Didn't know what he was doing. And even one of the USDA employees, the software manager, came to me one day and said, "What's the problem with him?" I was like, "Why are you asking me what's going on with that guy down in Kansas? It's just because he works in the same contracting company. I don't have any connection with his failure to perform down there. You already got a GS-13 that's supposed to be managing. What's the problem?" Good night of mercy. I mean, just when people find a problem solver, watch out, because that problem solver is going to get it. They just, because they can't find people who are going to do their job. Again, it's an integrity problem in this country. So anyway, this memory issue came up, and I told Tanika, you're installing the memory. It's a 3-minute job. You pull it back off, you stuck the memory in, just put it back, just restart the computer, boom, it's done. Finished. Solve the problem. Tanika came to my desk and started ordering me around, and I told her, I am not going to do this. This is your job, and stop harassing me. So she went immediately to Dan. Dan called Victoria Edgington. Edgington gave me an email and said, "You go over there and do this right now, and I don't want to hear a word from you." And that's how she always threatened people. Victoria Edgington, that's all she knows. She doesn't know a thing about management. All she knows is bitterness. That out of Anadarko in Houston. So I wrote a long email explaining, you don't know what you're talking about. So I go over to install the memory for this boss now, the one who called me. And I get in the office, and Tanika Harris is in there, and the one who accused me of being a racist. They are all in the office there to humiliate me. That's the USDA. That's the racism in this country. So Tanika over time just kept on piling on the work, and Tanika, I told Abay, I said, you're not coming to tell her she's not coming to my desk and touching my phone. She's not touching my phone. You're not coming here in my cubicle and doing anything. You can stand over here if you need something. You know, if there's something going on, we'll talk. So we had to repurpose the phones a third time because Morris had attached 5 people to one Outlook email for the apps of the Windows phones. And they had data bleed. People were seeing each other's data, so the phones had to be wiped and reprovisioned a third time. First it was a phone, then it was another phone replacement. Now this time we had to restart the phones and wipe them out and redo everything from scratch. And this is why I wrote these instructions. So sent them out to Adele in Texas. Adele calls me up. I have the spreadsheet. By this time, Morris and Sanchez are out completely. They own their details. Tanika is hit or miss in terms of doing work or anything. And this is getting down in June. So maybe it's not. Let me think about this for exact dates. But let me just, with the provisioning of the phones, yeah. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. It was in June because they were running through this through June. Yes. And I had attempted to get this straightened out much earlier, and Tanika got in the way and blocked me on this. In fact, when we were provisioning the phones the second time, they were getting rid of all the BlackBerries, and because there was some extra residuals. And I had told Tanika to make some labels for me because they wouldn't give me access to the UPS label maker website. They wouldn't give it to me. So I said something in February about labels, and they said, "You don't need the labels now." They're always blocking me from knowledge, blocking me from doing my job, interfering in my business continually. And so when it came to April, there was a major crisis. And on the last day when the BlackBerry phones were being discontinued, the USDA people across the nation lost BlackBerry service from Thursday until the following Monday because somebody didn't check the global address book, because a lot of those folks getting phones didn't have an address in there. So they had no way of sending out the phones after they got them ready. And they weren't fully provisioned because the Outlook part for the apps part wasn't set up by Ed Chi, and he thought it was hilarious. He didn't care. So what? We'll set it up after the fact. Really just shoddy work. And I had told them 2 months before, I can take care of this, a little piece at a time. And they all just thumb their nose at me. That's the way they do things. So now getting down to around June, Adele sees my 7-page thing, and then he says, "Do we really have to do the Outlook part?" And it's like, that's the whole reason for the phones being reprovisioned. God, that's so stupid. So I said, "Yeah, Adele, we got to do this." And so we're looking at the sheet, and I had already started making up individual new emails. You could only add 3 new emails to the Outlook site, create 3 new ones per day, and then the site will block you out. It was taking forever to create, an extra 100 emails just for that alone, and then put them in the spreadsheet. It was extremely time-consuming. The whole thing was a disaster using Windows phones. And anybody that's out there already knows this. Sorry, I know you know this. So then, so I'm on the phone with Adele, and then he starts asking about the spreadsheet with everything going on. So I put him on speaker, and I'm here typing. Tanika's on a diagonal cubicle. She comes all the way around, and she stands outside of my cubicle and starts shouting through my phone while I'm talking to Adele, talking over me. So on the last day of my work, which was June 18th. No, let me back up. I couldn't take any more of that crap. So finally I went to, with her harassing me and following me around, she made me her cause, no question about it. And she was enjoying all the protection by day and night. And these people are all from Maryland, okay? So, and I'm from Virginia. So, and some of you know what I mean by that. On the 16th, somewhere around that date, I went over to Kevin Smith. Now, I had talked to Kevin Smith all the way, not in June, but all the way back in October the previous year about filing the EEO complaint. And Kevin Smith blocked me. He's the EEO director, and he blocked me. He's a black guy. He blocked me from filing a complaint. He gave me a goose chase and said, "Go talk to the DC office or talk to the lawyers," and nobody talked to me. I even called the Inspector General of the EEO of the United States of America, and multiple times, they would not return my call. I've even filed a complaint with my own congressman, and they're so entrenched and so arrogant and so corrupt, racist, that they think they can get away with this. And that's why I'm making this video, one of the many reasons. So, I went to him and filed a complaint. And Dan was given word of it from Kevin, and Dan calls me in his office and lectures me and saying that, and this is after I'd already made a complaint against Tanika about her showing up in the office and this racism going on with these other two in there. I'd already made a complaint about this and said, this kind of harassment's got to stop around here. And Dan just dismisses the whole thing. He never disciplines any of these people. So I filed a complaint, and Dan calls me in his office. I said, look, I'm not doing her job. I'm already working past, I worked the Thursday before on June 11th, I worked 10 hours because nobody showed up. You violated your own rules. You weren't here, and nobody else was here. I carry the help desk by myself. That is not my job. It doesn't matter. Just abuse people. They don't care. Boy, my side is hurting. Whew, great day. Gets worse every time I bring up talk about these things. So anyway, now I gotta see a doctor. Dan attacks me, and well, when Dan refused to take action, I went to the administrator and sent him an email and told him what was going on, and he got mad earlier, about a month before, about that, and said, you can't go over my head. I said, you didn't do anything about it. You said yourself. So now here it is again. He says, you went over my head again. I said, you're not doing anything about it. I'm not going to report to Tanika Harris. What part do you not understand about that? Well, this is just a male-female thing. No, it's not. I don't work for her. I work for a bay. That's what I agreed to, and I am doing all of the work here, and you're jerking me around. So then a customer, a very good one, out of Colorado, had said they needed a few machines. So I've been given the ticket, and I was taking care of it. And I asked Tanika, I said, are we clear to do these over here? These two machines actually the ones to swap out on your inventory list. So she takes over everything. So on June 18th, I'm sitting at my desk. She comes around and says, you need to image these and send these out today. It's like, I have got tickets. I got people coming to my desk. In fact, when I sat down that morning at 8 o'clock, between 8 and 8:30, I had a visit, I had an instant message, I had a phone call, I had a ticket, and had an email in 30 minutes. Just the barrage, because they knew I would get things done. Never refused people. I could walk around the 2 loops right there of that building, and before I get around there, I've done 3 tickets, even though I had 1 to do in the first place. Somebody would stop me and say, can you? All the time. I didn't refuse them, because I felt like, hey, that's what you hired me to do, so hey, I'm going to help you out. And so then, on that morning, when she comes over to make that assignment, it says, I need to image this right here. And I said, so I slammed my hands on the desk and I said, I will image it myself. And the reason I was angry is because she didn't know a thing about imaging. She didn't lift a finger, make any effort, and there were post-image procedures she didn't have a clue about. She would send that thing out as is, and it wouldn't be ready. Certain tweaks would have to be done, then it would have to be done remotely. Why do that? Why not have the machine so it's turnkey? When you hand it over to the people in Colorado, it's ready to go with the user's name, user's password. They start it up, it's perfect. Why not do that? It's right there at your fingertips, and it doesn't take but an extra 15 minutes on each machine, but she didn't care. She was not interested in anything of any kind of process or anything. She didn't know how to do town hall, didn't care. Didn't know how to even set up a network printer. Didn't know how to image things. All part of help desk, tier 3, making $100,000, better than $100,000. Didn't give a kitty. And Dan didn't say a thing to her. She's all free. She can do whatever she wants, take off AWS days, take off holidays, whatever. Sit in the back, lock the door, keep customers from coming in, harass me, follow me in the hallways, even follow me one time when I was going up to the bathroom. Right about that time I got fired. It was unbelievable. So immediately she shot out and went to Dan and whined again. So I'm walking in the hallway and I see Ed Chi. Ed Chi constantly would just salivated, just enjoyed the suffering I was going through. He knew everything that was going on down that way. I mean, when they had to go through and reset all the printers because they changed the IPs, those 3, Ed, Tanika, and Gil Sanchez all got together and did a little bit of the work, but I did the rest of it. And the next day was a bunch of them left over. I did all those. So I did more than 50% of them by myself, of resetting all the IPs for everybody's printers, because they changed them around the entire office for 70 people. I did most of them. They didn't care. They knew that I would do it. They knew they could stiff me because I was a contractor. They knew they found a sucker they could burn. So I see attitude coming down the hallway, and I said, I want to ask you something. Is it common practice amongst you people here in IT over the years for somebody to be working at the desk and have somebody stand at the edge of the desk and to be shouting over a telephone call when a person is engaged in their business? Is this common practice? And he said yes. And then he laughed about it. His eyes were beaming. He was so happy. I said, you know what? I'll tell you what, if this is how you guys are going to work, then come October 1st, I'm going to find some other line of work and get out of this mess. I'm not going to renew on this contract because I'm not putting up with this crap anymore. So, of course, he went back to Dan, too, on that same day. So, I had an emergency laptop. I had to provision for a new user on site that morning. Dan comes down the hallway and he thinks I'm supposed to stop whatever I'm doing and just answer to him in the hallway. Well, first of all, chain of command seems not to make any difference to him at all. He thinks he can boss me around directly. Abay is nowhere. I answered to Abay. I agreed to work for Abay when I sat down in the room in the first day last year. So where is he? Always a coward. I saw him actually crouch beneath a table one time in a meeting where all the brass were sitting in, and they couldn't get the video conference set up in a particular room because we found out later it had a fault from the day it was set up. It had a wireless issue, and it had a server software issue from day one. Now, and Dan, you know, terrible things going on in that place. We had one time where people were using the VPNs, and we had two firewall appliances. They took one down, and it totally screwed up the share drives for employees for a solid month. I said, make those people off-site go over there and verbatim copy the config file and put it on the new machine, and then it'll work. When they finally listened to me, because I said it from the beginning that month, then it started working again. Where was Abay all this time? Where was Dan? Ticket after ticket after ticket, and excuses for shoddy service that was just unnecessary. Ordering phones. Dan decides the rest of the USDA is using Windows phones. Nobody's using Windows phones. Using iPads, iPhones, and a few Androids. The rest of them, thousands of them. I know because I talked to the administrator over at the BlackBerry side, who's off-site. Thousands of them over there. Nobody's using Windows phones. Why did Dan get away with that and provision Windows phones, and then have to throw them all out and buy 150 more phones, and then we had to re-provision them a third time, 3 times in 1 year for the users out in the field? Dan takes no responsibility for any of this crap. It's mismanagement, none. And I literally ran through the hallways to get tickets done because there was so much work in that place. I mean, we're talking about that June 11th day, I did the work of 4 people. 3 of the people, the tier 3 was out, and I'm there, so I'm carrying the whole help desk by myself. So then, when I filed that EEO complaint, so Dan and Anadarko, all of them came together, and they brought a police officer up there, and they escorted me off the site on June 18th and fired me. And I was out of work for 5 solid months. And people look at my resume. I went to an interview for a law firm in D.C., and when I explained to them, you know, the kind of stuff that, you know, I've gotten awards, I've gotten compliments, here they are, I've done the work for 2 or 3 people, and I filed an EEO, okay, bye, get out. So they have, the USDA has really destroyed my reputation over there. The racism is just inexcusable, and that's a lawsuit waiting to happen. So I'll be filing my documents very soon here, and I just want to say to you people at the EEOC, if you think I'm playing around, you're in for a very rough ride. If you think you're going to cover this one up, there'll be more videos if you keep on, because I will grow-claw you to death, just like they did over there with the Microsoft Linux case and IBM and all that stuff with the grow-claw, and kept records of everything and posted on the internet in writing. I'll video you right off the map. Just had to borrow money again just to live. 5 months after all the work I did. I mean, I get an award from the political appointee and then I get fired, you know, and you all accuse me of racism just because you don't get your phone. And Morris tells me, oh, that person like that, she's just like that. That's who she is. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that. Well, see, now you got a known race issue, discrimination going on in your shop, and you're just because you're federal, you think you can cover up that crap, and you can stick it to me and say, well, you know, you can't do anything about it. No. No. In Anadarko, you're no better. I mean, when we went to go for that little training session shortly before I was fired for give them a pickle. I mean, I have to provide the laptop for the training session so the DVD could be played. So I'm the help desk for the help desk. You're all pathetic, you know. You're really just pathetic. And you're getting angry. It's just, this is one of the endemic problems in the United States. It's management by anger. And it's been going on since about the late 90s. People think they're so great, they're so important, and they're doing computers. That doesn't mean anything. It's just a device. It's just like a hammer or a tool or something. It's a means to an end. And this business of running people on the ground and screwing them over and, you know, acting hateful and firing people and all this stuff is this is what really makes America a bad place. It's not a land of opportunity. It's a land of opportunists. You're just trying to grab some money and covering for your blistering incompetence and your mean-spiritedness and your racism and everything else you do wrong. It's just it's really a waste. It just doesn't have to be this way in this country. It's shameful. You all should always be ashamed of yourself. And I'm going to work vigorously to get you fired and get you bounced off your contracts and clean that crap up. And by the way, Secretary Vilsack, you think I'm playing? This is a legal warning to you and your little phony. Look at this crap. My USDA says here, Secretary's Cultural Transformation Recognition. It says, have lunch with somebody different from you. Team with someone with the opposite brain orientation. Honestly evaluate your commitment to inclusion. You lecture me about inclusion, and you do this to me. Oh, and by the way, thanks for excluding me from AgLearn too. I was the only one excluded, both on the from the Anadarko side where they had full access, and on the USDA side, and also excluded from any kind of training. And yet you wanted me to do all the work. Yeah, that's coming back to you as well. Let's see. Help others adopt a mindset of 100% responsibility and accountability. From the Secretary, are you kidding me? I mean, this stuff is posted. I think this was in the administrator's office, your political appointee. Let's see. Clarify your career goals. Honestly evaluate your commitment to inclusion. I got to say one more thing. I worked at USDA years before in the same little dirty room in a basement there, and there was a particular user who had wanted to try to get VPN over dial-up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was scared of the ticket right there. So I followed her. You know, when she come in the office, I asked her questions, so how's it going? And about after I'd been there about 4 or 5 months, she saw her go by and say, how's it going? It's not going. Went to her desk, and she had a loaner laptop, and then she had a regular laptop which had been fixed, but somebody had taken the power brick for both the regular laptop and the docking station. I'm like, this is crazy. So I asked around, and they said I had to go to the BPA, you know, GSA order book. So I found that one could be ordered through GSA, and the other one had to be ordered directly from HP. So I took that information, Greg Turner, that's the guy's name, and I put it in an email and said, this person, I took the ticket, reopened it because one of the coworkers had closed it and just left it sitting up there. Loaner laptop was past the 90-day limit and everything, against the rules of Juanita Zaney. That's another one you got to watch out for, USDA. And so then I reopened the ticket, took it over, and I sent an email to one person on the USDA side and to Greg Turner, and I said, you know, this person's thing has been this way for this time, and we need to order 2 power bricks. The very next day after I said that, I came to work. I got there at 6:50 a.m. because I was coming out of Vanpool out of Warrenton, and at 7 a.m. Greg Turner and somebody else come in, and they fired me on the spot, saying that I violated employee procedures or some crap. So here's a person over here. I'm white. A black guy leaves the ticket, closes it out, leaves the person in the lurch, still got a loaner laptop, and their regular laptop's not working for at least a month. And so I take over the ticket and just offer information, and I'm fired. So I almost ended up in the ditch for that. I had to borrow money back then too. That's why my family's so angry with me. They have to borrow money because of these people, what they're doing to me. And that's why I'm on this video, and that's why I'm on YouTube, because it's time for everybody to be held accountable. I've had enough. And USDA, you're the worst place to work in D.C. That little IT section, you're inexcusable. Just positively inexcusable. In fact, when you did that migration back in that 08, you said you're going to do 2,000 in 3 weeks, and you did 232 under 180 Zany. Yeah. Don't tell me. I've seen where you people have, laptops stacked in the basement, and you didn't distribute them out. And people told me, they pulled that move before. The things sat there for so long, they became out of warranty. And you had to get rid of them because you didn't distribute them. It's been going on for years. There's a decade at least of abuse and waste in that place. USDA is unbelievable. And the part that offends me the most was going down in the basement one time, and a bunch of guys talking to each other, and they start saying, how are you loyal to a woman? And said, well, you're loyal to a woman if you eat out her asshole. I don't understand people. I don't. How do you think you can come to work and talk like in the other jobs I mentioned, sodomy, prostitution, and say these kinds of things, do these things that kind of, or assault people, like Guy Wasserstug did at Smithsonian, and get away with it? What, have you lost your mind? What's wrong with this country? So anyway, that's the USDA story, and I'll conclude here.